Hey, welcome to the podcast, Eddie.
Hey, thanks for having me again, Asher.
For anyone who doesn't know you, who do you say you are?
Um, I'm a man at first, uh, a father, a son, um, a leader, and a student.
You said in a student.
Yep, a leader and a student.
I like that. One of the things I always enjoy being around you, and especially having met you through the men's prayer line, is when you present, your presentations are always straightforward, and it shows that learning mode. And to one of the last presentations of yours I caught was when you were talking about how you can calm your mind when you feel anxious or you feel like you're in a whirlwind where you've got to stop, step back, take a breath, and pray. And I maybe heard that back in June, July, August. I'm not sure, but I've just had that in the replay in the back of my mind over and over. And it's like, is it really that serious? This person cuts you off, or this isn't going, or you think you can't do this? It's like, okay, stop, take a breath, step back, and pray. I'm sure I maybe mixed up the order a little bit there, but the concept still sits with me.
Oh no, that's it, man. That's it. And you did it just right. The process is just like that. You find yourself in a situation. You have to maintain and control your emotions at all times. I've been in so many situations where I've let my emotions lead,
Mm,
um, and it most of the time it definitely wasn't a good thing.
right.
And that's not just in, like, say, I'm talking about in not just relationship with people or interaction with people, but interactions with money,
Mm,
interactions with investing and good ideas, or even starting some stuff with my own business, or doing stuff with the nonprofit. You get excited about something, and and it sounds like a good idea,
right.
but you really, before you jump into it, I realize I have to just take a step back, um, breathe and pray, and
Yeah.
that breathing and praying kind of go together though. So
Mm. Yeah. It's funny because I used to think whenever I would hear people pray, I would think that, man, they really have phenomenal prayers, or how are they able to do that? And the more time I've kind of spent by myself in the morning and learning how to pray or just how to talk with God as if I was talking to myself or talking to you like this. It's like, okay, I go from like asking mode to relating mode to being grateful in the sense of like, hey, can you do this for me? Versus like, hey, thank you for doing this for me because I understand that I'm in the process of getting the things that I want right now. And instead of staying hopeful, so to speak, I'm kind of working in anticipation a little bit, like learning to do a little less and learning to get more focused with what it is that I'm doing. So, for example, for work, we had a meeting Tuesday, and all the while the meeting's going on, I'm kind of talking to myself in my head, and I'm just hearing like all the negative thoughts be like, "Yeah, it sounds easy enough for you to say," kind of. But then once we get off the meeting, I stopped, like we talked about, and I took a step back, and I'm like, "Okay, let me write out the projects that I'm working on. How can I buffer my time?" And it's like, realistically, if I focus on one thing, it might take me 1 or 2 hours of focus, attention. And if I just say, this is the one thing I need to get done today, so long as I get that done, I made progress. If I can get more done, cool. But better that I set myself up for success to say, I'm going to get this one thing done on Wednesday, on Thursday, and on Friday. By the end of the week, I should have these three things marked off, and anything else that comes in there last minute emergency, I can handle it because I've made the time and I've made the space for it. I've kind of separated myself from the here's the long laundry list, but it's like here's the only thing that's going to be a priority for today. So it's like this is the only thing I focused on. And then as other things come up in my mind, it's like, oh no, that's not the right now thing. So they'll be added on later. But when I made that short list of 3 things to do for 3 days, I got to the end of it and I was like, that actually worked. It's like it wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah, man, when you take the time to write things out, it really helps with your discipline.
Mm,
Like I don't know if people really understand that or not, but how to become more disciplined in doing stuff. One of the first steps for many people, if you can't do it naturally, one of the first steps for many people is just to write it out what you want done,
right,
and make it a, put a value um level on what needs to get done, what does need to, what can needs to get done immediately, compared to what can be done later.
right,
But that's really a great strategy to increasing your discipline and getting stuff done. Like I don't know any I don't know anyone who is super disciplined that's
hmm,
not writing it down.
hmm,
Yeah, they're not, after a while they there are some things that become automatic for them, but they still writing it down.
right,
Yeah. There's very few people that I've met that are super disciplined that's not writing stuff down.
right, right.
Yeah.
It, it's funny because I think back to around the time that we met, 2017, and one of my coworkers had introduced me to this thing called the Panda Planner, and I'd maybe gone through 10 of them at this point, and I was thinking to myself, I didn't really want another thing, but it seemed very timely for the time that I needed it, to where it was learning to journal daily, weekly, and monthly. And basically, you could work front to back, back to front, where you would set your intentions for the month, for the week, and for the day. And the guy that
Mm-hmm.
came up with it, he had to write down things repetitively because he had memory loss issues due to Lyme's disease. And
Mm,
I guess as I used it, maybe I liked it because it had this like gratitude prompt at the beginning. Say, write 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 things you're excited about. And then it kind of gave you ideas of like how to practice that gratitude. And I think maybe like tips from Tim Ferriss is looking at like, hey, if you have a pen, for instance, like what is it about this pen that you might be grateful for, or this glass of water, or if this reminds you of somebody in your life, like what is it about that relationship that expresses a sense of gratitude to you, versus just like if you're just writing the same things over and over and you're going through the motions and you're not really feeling the interest in it or any kind of value in the writing down, then it may be time to kind of take a break or rethink why it is you're thinking in that way. And lastly, at the end of the day, instead of looking at what went wrong or what went right, you're asked to write out 3 wins. And then in like one sentence and one space, it's like, how will you improve on today? So it's like you're priming yourself up for the next day
mm,
at the end of the day.
yeah. Right. Yeah. That the end of the day writing for the next day. So recounting the day
Hmm.
that you're ending and then setting yourself up for the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are really great strategies to getting stuff done and setting things in priority and setting goals. Um, yeah, that's one thing we prescribe for athletes as well, man,
Mm.
is to be able to have those journals and to mark your progress
Yeah.
through those journals, to look at your day. When say for example you playing sport and you have an event, and you even if you win or lose, you still have to take into account of how you play.
Mm.
Like if you won, then how did you contribute to the win?
Mm.
What did you do? Right? There's ways to contribute to the win without even getting in the game. Like if
Mm.
you keep the sideline upbeat, if you keep team focus on the sideline, or on the bench, you're cheering your other players on. Those things help contribute to the game as well, because they help build confidence up in the team. They help build morale up in the team,
Right.
and that helps build cohesiveness.
Mm.
And so cohesiveness and and winning actually go together. Like the
Right.
better you play, the more cohesive you are, the better you'll play. The
Mm.
better you play helps with your cohesiveness.
Mm.
It's when teams start to go down the side, these internal arguments, you see them start to fall apart on the court or in play.
Right.
So, just being able to again, going back to it's a lot of this is really just interconnected,
Mm.
and how it makes you way more successful in whatever endeavors you want to do, whether it's personal development, whether it's business, whether it's family.
Yeah.
Before my kids went off to school, because I've only have one home now. Everybody else ventured out and they're doing well.
Mm.
We would have I would call a family meeting, and I would sit down with them, and we would do a SWOT analysis of our family
Yeah.
and of each individual, and we would write it on a little board, with the little markers and stuff, and we could erase it. And so I would mark it, and I would leave it sitting on the floor right below the TV. So
Mm.
whenever they walked in, turn the TV on, they could see, what we discussed.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, just using those techniques, man, um, and strategies in life is a huge, component to being successful. You
Yeah.
know.
That's a great point. It's funny because I was telling you earlier, I started going back to the gym and I signed up for a local gym and I did this weekend workout from one of the workouts I got from Dr. Pat Ivy last year.
Okay.
And while I was doing the workout, I was listening to ET give a sermon for today. And one of the things he was talking about was I maybe caught it mid sermon, but he mentioned the SWOT analysis and he was saying that as he went through it, he never got to the T in the SWOT analysis, which is looking at the threats. Like what are
Mm,
the threats that are there? And when I look at what I'm doing now and making an effort to optimize my work, so to speak, and not try to do too much. Like before, I was journaling and trying to follow all these different prompts, but getting into the habit of like checking in with myself, putting down my thoughts and saying, okay, on the one hand, I can write out my budget for the month and I know, hey, these are the bills I expect to pay. This is when I expect to pay them. So there are no surprises. And if I take something new on, it's like, okay, does that fit into this budget that I set for myself? But then on the other hand, just in a spiral bound notebook, oh, I got it right here. Just going back to this, the thing we had in school, where it's like, okay, before you were told what to put in your book, like you needed this for math class, you needed this for English, you had to do this assignment, that assignment. But now it's like by checking in daily or every other day, like on a Saturday or on a Wednesday, it's like, okay, what am I feeling? What have I noticed? What is it that I see that I'm good at from this book that I listened to? What are some of the values that I pulled from that? What's something that I want to study deeper on? And being able to do that, it's been pretty neat to where it's a reminder that I get to control what it is that I want. And I don't have to dismiss what other people have for me, but at least in this case, I have a chance to choose and kind of build out what it is, the life that I would like to have. But one of the things I got from it was listening to this book called The Algebra of Wealth by Scott Galloway. And I like the way that he writes it in two things that he said. You are what you do. And it's more important to do the things that you're good at rather than focusing on your passion alone. Because it's like you can be passionate about something, but if it doesn't drive any results, you could be like the starving artist, where it's that somebody might tell you, oh, that's noble. But it's like if you have a mouth to feed, you need to put a roof over your head. It's like do the thing that you don't like and do the work. Like most of us in this world, you have to work, and it's not a dirty, nasty thing. It's just work is work. It's for a time. And once you get through it, that frees you up to do the other things, to buy and have the other things that you need in life. So I was like having that reminder from someone that's gone through it, kind of got years under his belt and has the experience. It's like, oh, I'm not losing anything per se. I'm where I need to be. I can do my work more focused, writing down exactly what it is that I'm going to work on. and just focusing on that thing. And then once it's done, moving on or just celebrating it, even for a little bit, to be like, oh, that was, I did that thing. Like this week wasn't a complete waste. I did something and I said I was going to do that. I did it. And now it's on to the next thing.
Yeah, yeah. And that's applying that to like anything, home project, um, just wherever you want to, a lot of times we isolate areas in life with strategies, but not realizing that, the strategies that we use in one area is great in another,
Right.
you know.
Right.
All those things can be applied to whatever aspect of life you find yourself in. I know when I was doing my master's, I was working with the kids on mental skills, and I was giving them some techniques to help them out, not just in gymnastics. It was gymnastic crew, so not just with gymnastics, but also they could use it for academics,
Mm-hmm.
and they could use it when they're nervous or when they're anxious, right? So some breathing skills I was teaching them, some ways of keeping themselves calm. Just it was a number of different strategies I was introducing them to that they could use to help themselves out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know one group was one couple of kids were nervous on the mat, and so we worked through a routine that they could do um, of imagery to help themselves out.
Mm-hmm.
Have, what their day looked like leading up to the mat to the meet, and then what it looked like the day of the meet, and then
Mm-hmm.
going through the whole process of that day of the meet.
Mm-hmm.
Like them writing out what they in their head what they'll have to go through: school, home, clothes. Um, their mind was thinking about as they were having to get ready for the meet, and what they felt like the travel to the meet.
Mm-hmm.
What it was like walking into through the doors and smell and all this kind of stuff. So we helped them imagine all this and get that in their heads first, to help them with these skills. But then at the same time, I said, now you can take this same thing and use it for tests. Like, you got a
Right.
test coming up. Imagine what preparation for the test is going to be like. Let's write
Mm-hmm.
this out. Right, write out your preparation for the test, and then walk through it in your mind.
Right.
What the day of the test is going to look like. Coming to school, the ride to school, the food you're going to eat before you go to school, and sitting in class, and then getting to this test that you've studied for now.
Right.
You don't have to be so anxious. So when they got that, and then okay, let's do a breathing skill. We did one was muscle relaxation, because they would get tense, and you don't need to be super tense when you're performing in gymnastics, right? You can get hurt like that,
Mm-hmm.
and so you have to be a level of relaxation,
Right.
because and that's really in a lot of sports like that as well. You don't want to be super tense muscle wise, your body going into the activity, and so to relax the mind, it's hard for the body to be. It's hard for the mind to be super anxious and overtaxed if the
Mm-hmm.
body's relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to help relax the mind, because what led up to the intensity of the body was their anxiousness in their brain, in their
Right.
mind. And so I helped them with a technique that would help relax their mind by relaxing the body. And then they
Mm-hmm.
were able to use that not just in gymnastics, not just taking a test, but when they was anxious at night going to sleep, before the test next day, or before the meet the next day, they could use that same muscle relaxation technique they got in
Right.
class and apply it, and they would go to sleep. And they come back and report, so, hey, no, I used that technique last night, and I went to sleep. I was like,
Right.
great. So there's a lot of these things that we learn, that we can use in all aspects of our life.
Yeah.
And that's I like introducing the youth to stuff like that as well. Outside of taking certain groups that we have that choose to go through our program through Mayhem,
Mm-hmm.
which we talked about last time. I was
Right.
when we talked on the podcast. But I like introducing them to these techniques that a lot of times um, only athletes get. You
Right.
know, and so taking that same sport psychology, those techniques we give the athletes, but I give it to the regular child because they still got to perform somewhere in life, right? And so to help them perform better, we use these different techniques. and they can apply it again. Anxiousness of a test,
Mm,
anxieties about something else, and they need to go to sleep. You know, they could have problems at home with parents or the siblings, and that could cause them to, have bad days or not perform well. And so, how do you the same techniques we use to help people manage um, other relationships is the same techniques we use to help athletes manage sport because it's a relationship with the sport, it's a relationship with their teammates, it's a relationship over here. So we take them same techniques and we apply it to the average person or the average child, and they perform better.
mm. Man, that's a great point. It's funny because when you talk about how things are related, two things pop to my mind. I think one conversation with Dr. Pi, he'd mentioned that like when you what you do at work, that professionalism that you use, it's like, why can I not bring that at home, or why can I not consult with my wife in the same way that I would um my supervisors or my employees, and different things like that. And it also reminded me of this. I think it's a conversation with James Baldwin and his wife, or I'm not sure if it's his wife or significant other, but basically she's asking him to lie to her like he lies to the man at work. And he's like, well, I can't do that. She's like, well, you smile at him. Why don't you smile for me? Like I want some of that. I want some of that. The things that you have to give out there, even if you got to put on a face, like put that face on for me. Like I want a little bit of that experience as well. And it's kind of just a reminder that life is a holistic thing. Sure, you have compartments of this is what you do at work, this is what you do at home, but when you're able to bring all of yourself to every environment that you go into, it's a good way to like not carry too much stress where you're like, how do I have to do this or how can I do this? Is like, okay, who I am here is what allows for me to experience all of my life in every room that I walk into.
Yeah. Pi, man, talking to Dr. Ivy, man. I've had a lot of I've done some interviews with him too when I was doing my master's program in sports
Mm,
psych because he is in that field, man. He's a giant in that field. He has couple of books, and
mhm,
you know, he was taught by one of the greats, man. McGuire, Coach McGuire, Dr.
mm,
McGuire, man. He's from at Missouri. He used to be at Missouri, the University of Missouri, and but no, man, Dr. Pat Ivy is a great resource um, to have as well. I've read a few things by him when it comes to branching outside of sport with the skills that we learn in to use with athletes,
mhm,
and using that outside of sport in everyday life. So
mm,
yeah, and that conversation you mentioned um, with James Baldwin and the young lady, yeah, that's I've seen that taping, that recording, and that's a heavy conversation because what I got from it was that she was literally saying, "Man, lie to me to make me feel comfortable, like you lie to the people at work to make them feel
mm,
comfortable." You know what I'm saying? Because there's this idea that if you're this disruptive worker, then you make the boss feel better. He feels more comfortable around you. He feels more relaxed around you. She's like, "Yeah, you bring this energy home to me, and now the whole house is messed up."
mm,
I'm sharing this with you, but at the same time, I still need peace from you too. You know, you bring your day in, and it may not be a great day,
mhm.
but don't take it out on me.
Right.
And that's a heavy conversation because they want to be happy too. Like she's like, I want to be happy too. I want to be around you too. I want to see your smiles. Don't
Mm,
bring all your frowns to me. Don't bring all your sadness to me at home and stuff like that. And that's such a big thing, man, because there's so many incidences where people, what happens to us outside our home, and that energy that we can't express outside the home because we don't feel like we have the authority, or we
mm,
don't feel like we have the leverage. We don't feel like we have the
Security.
opportunity. Great word, security to do it. We don't feel like we are the liberty,
Mm.
you know, to express, how we feel outside the home, in those places of employment, or even in the street, you know what I'm saying, or even somewhere else.
Right.
And granted, we got to learn how to express ourselves better. Every individual, I think, needs to learn how to express themselves better. But we need to learn how to express us. But when we bring that energy home and then we get behind our doors and we give it to the other folk in our home, like we give them all the stuff we want to do in the street, but we don't. But they ain't the people that caused it,
Right.
and they get all that bad energy. They get all the energy from the L's, that we felt like we took that day. You
Mm.
know, beat the kid, beat the kids, and kick the dog. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. Um, and there used to be a thing with some people. They come home
Yeah.
and they take it out on their family, man. And it's like, well, don't bring your stuff home from work. Don't take work home with you. That's just more. That's more than just not taking the assignments at work
Yeah.
home with you, but also don't take that energy from home, from work, to your home either. Like, wash that
Right.
off you. Whatever you got to do, wash that off for you before you go in the house.
Yeah.
You know, and we can have a great conversation with your wife or your kids or whatever. You
Yeah.
know, if you just got a pet, you go inside, you got a conversation with the dog, whatever. But keep that energy out your home.
Right.
Yeah, keep that energy out your, because your home is your sacred space.
Mm.
Yeah, your
I,
home is your sacred space, man. So some people their sacred space and even their home. It's their car.
mm.
Some people go sit in their car, bro. It's
Yeah.
it's I'm hey,
That's true.
because they home ain't a sacred space for them. So, you have these sacred spaces. You have to keep that negative energy out of your sacred space.
Yeah.
And your home should be your sacred space. Really, whatever your home is, whatever you made your home, the apartment, whatever it is, um, you should, you know, be able to make that place your sacred space. That's your spot. That's your private place. So
It's a good point. I w- I was thinking
yeah.
of asking you
But
like,
man, being
uh,
able to have
my bad.
yes, go ahead. No, no, please go ahead.
No,
No,
I
you're
was
good.
thinking of asking you how you've been able to do that yourself, but it kind of, I think we've already kind of answered it because when I think back to the techniques that you might give an athlete when it comes to um, forecasting, so to speak, like thinking about where it is that you're going to be, taking in your senses, your sight, smell, taste, hearing, touch, trying to touch the things that are in your environment, like tapping into your five senses within like 10 to 15 seconds and trying to relax your body or working to relax your body by saying like tensing your forehead or like squinting your eyebrows as high as they can go or like closing your eyes real tight, scrunching up your nose, moving to your mouth, then to your shoulders, and then like just kind of progressively moving down the body and being able to do something like that. I think Royce had shared a video with me that's kind of good for both relaxing your muscles or maybe helping you get to sleep as well. And that's something that I did like on a lunch break after going for a walk for like 20, 30 minutes around our office business park and then coming inside, just turning off the lights, laying my head down, and then kind of going through that progression at the same time. And I think when I knew that I was relaxed because at one point I just felt like a tear streamed down my cheek and I was like, okay, that's like a happy tear. It's like my body is able to release something. And then I think I forgot that that's what probably freed me up to make that list, or I forget which order it may have been. It may have been on a different day, but just at the time that I needed it, I was able to kind of put that down and stop carrying something that I wasn't sure where to put down. It's like something's kind of weighing heavy on you, and you're like, am I overthinking this? Am I just running to the negative and wanting to embrace that and be like, okay, this is going to be the reasoning behind why I justified acting out or my bad behavior, or just like, hey, if I've got approval from, if I can count one or two things that can be like, okay, this justifies my action, then I'm free to take that action and then I don't have to feel bad about it. But it's like, okay, is this action more in the negative or is it going to bring me anything positive back? Am I running from my problems or am I like assigning blame to different people instead of kind of looking at myself without blaming myself, but like saying, okay, what is it that you can do to actually become a different person, become a person that as the future you goes forward, you're not going to repeat the same challenge or the same problem. Like that's kind of where my head was with that when you talk about like being able to leave the stress of work at work and not take it home to your family or take it home to your sacred place.
Yeah, man. And it's something that, I have to practice it all the time, bro. I really do. Like when you mentioned the SWOT analysis, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't, a lot of times, here's what, let me say this.
Mhm.
There were times me doing a SWOT analysis that when I look at threats, I got to the threat, I just either strengths, weaknesses,
Mhm.
opportunities, and then threats, right? Um, really digging, I started to really have to dig into a threat, um, like an internal threat, like a threat that me not like. So one of my threats with SWOT analysis, and I'm going to relate this to bringing stuff back, not bringing stuff home, but using those techniques, right?
Mhm. Right.
One of my threats is my acquisition of knowledge.
Mm.
I love to learn, right? But it's a threat to me if I love to learn without the purpose of using what I learned.
Mm. I can relate
Because
to
I can
that.
oversaturate myself with information
Yeah.
and it just be information. And then that information, I have it, right? But I had no recourse on me learning it to use to better something or to use it in a productive way. It's just me learning it,
Right.
right? I have that's I like to learn, right? But sometimes I learn just out of the habit of, man, it's interesting. Let me learn what that is,
Yeah.
but not out of the habit of, man, let me learn, see how I can use that later on,
Mm.
right? And so I can learn these techniques, but then never use them,
Mhm.
right? So I have to constantly um, remind myself to use the techniques that I know.
Mhm.
Because even though I know them, I still got to choose to use them. I still got to manage. Because sometimes you want to stay mad. Sometimes you want to stay upset. Sometimes it's just, you don't want to let go, right?
Right.
But if I don't, I have to remind myself, if you don't let go, then you're going to be trapped.
Yeah.
It's the analogy of the monkey with his hand in the jar that has the coin or whatever it is inside the jar.
Yeah.
He won't really let the jar go, so he can't get free. He won't let the thing go, so he can't get the jar, so he can't get free.
Right.
And so I have to be able to release some stuff just to be just to get my hand out the jar. Because once I'm triggered, then
Mhm.
I'm in the spot. I'm in this place.
Right.
And that's for me, that's equivalent to have my hand in the jar. Because I grabbed onto whatever that thing is that triggered me, I've grabbed onto it. And now I
Mm.
have to figure out how to let that go so that I can be free.
Yeah.
And right. And so that I don't again myself get captured, right? Um there's a trick to finding water that some tribes use.
Mhm.
And what they'll do, they'll put salt or whatever, they'll put something out and the animal will come and they'll lick that thing and then the animal gets so full that they'll lead them to where the water source is
Right.
because of the animal knows you don't know. So the animal finds the water source.
Mhm.
But also what's happening is they'll lead them to your watering hole.
Mm.
So now all the animals are at danger
Mm.
when you lead them. If that animal leads them to the watering hole, all the animals that go to the watering hole are at danger now from the predator.
Right.
So if I don't release, right, if I don't release and let go, they catch me and get me in, and I get captured in space, then I
Mm.
endanger everybody around.
Mm.
So I have to, in order to save my family or save my sacred spaces, I have to be able to let go.
It's a great point.
And so I got to remind myself, man, a lot of times I didn't think about that when I was doing SWOT analysis. I didn't think about internal threats.
Right.
We look at it, maybe in the house to our home, our attitudes, our thing. But then what's this threat that's also tied to a strength of yours? Because a desire to learn is a good thing.
Right.
But a desire to learn just to accumulate knowledge can be a bad thing because you become oversaturated with information with
Right.
nowhere for it to go, and it becomes useless at that point.
Yeah.
You know,
I
so
think
I
that
have to remind myself. Yeah,
that
go
that
ahead.
makes sense. No, I was gonna say I think that's one of the best things I've been able to do these past couple months is kind of put a timeline on what I'm learning or what I'm listening to, whether it's a podcast or whether it's a book. It's like just listening to one book in a day for like 15, 30 minutes and then just being like, that's all I'm gonna listen to for today. And maybe I think about it or maybe I'm gonna sleep on it. And then if something comes out of that, I'll be thinking of either a way to use it or what can I do with this information rather than be like, okay, I'll listen to 3 different books, like 3 15-minute segments, and then I'll go listen to 3 more podcasts, and then it's like, I might be doing things in the while, and I can be like, "Yeah, I heard all this stuff," but then I'm having trouble even recalling the information or even knowing, "Okay, well, I heard about this, but so what?" Like, I didn't validate it, I didn't verify it, I didn't do anything else with it. It was just I got the information, and I was just happy to get it, but then it's like you're drowning in information to where you don't know where to put it next. It's just the next person that comes to you and brings you something is just here's more, here's more, here's more, here's more. And it's like it feels a lot better when I've just got one thing to deal with and not a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. We have all things in moderation,
Yeah,
even
very true.
acquisition information. So even acquisition information. So yeah, yeah.
I had a question for you. How do you deal
Hmm.
with the changing seasons, whether it's you're training athletes or for yourself when it seems like we kind of go into a hibernation period when winter comes about. But then with athletes, especially with college football, this is like the season when they've got to be switched on and like ready to go. It's not really, I don't know if like football players or winter players have like seasonal depression or if just like the activity kind of allows you to put those things to the side where your body's active and your mind's active when most of the world is kind of winding down going towards the holidays.
Well, there's so I think some athletes just may experience all that stuff throughout the whole thing, throughout the whole year, right? Of
Mhm.
course, it may get for some people, man. Being in sport is the thing that alleviates the depression,
Yeah.
right? And so when the season's gone, what do they do during that time? The great athletes, they always training.
Mm.
They got so you can talk to Dr. Ivan, but he'll tell you as a truth because his I know he's in the psych side now, but at one time he was one of the best strength and conditioning coaches in the nation,
Mm.
right? And so what you do for your athletes is you have an in-season program and an
Yeah.
out-of-season program,
Mm.
right? And so the out-of-season program is actually, because you're not in play, you can actually do more in the weight room. You can do more in agility. You can do more of those small things that you can't really get in because you have to recover from play.
Mhm.
So you can't have this heavy schedule of working out without this, because you don't have your window for recovery is shorter, right?
Right.
And so you have a different program for out of season. And
Mhm.
so the out of season program, it kind of keeps you in the mindset of the season to come.
Mhm.
So, helping alleviate some of that depression and stuff like that is actually keeping them busy in the gym or giving them things to do and also giving them a more holistic way of looking at life. Like it just can't be for a long time, it used to just be sport for athletes,
Right.
right? And once sport was gone, a lot of these athletes, this was years ago, but life is, they researching more. They have different kind of programs, and so um, they're realizing now that athletes have to be way more well-rounded, and athletes are way more well-rounded, right?
Mhm.
Um, I got my nephew. He plays collegiate football. He plays for Carolina. He's a lineman for Carolina,
Mhm.
and he's also a businessman,
Mhm.
right? He's a businessman, and he understands that he is a business,
Mhm.
right? So he's more than just him being on the field all the time. He's doing internships. He's doing all these other things that make him more holistic, right?
Mhm.
To help round him out as a better person.
Right.
Because with sport, there's nothing that's really guaranteed. Like
Right.
you can be ready for the draft and get ready to get drafted, and so an injury happened that not had nothing to do with sport, and then you can't even go.
Mhm.
Or you can get injured off season. You can get injured anywhere. You can have these life altering moments in life, man, where it just changes you, and you can't do that thing that you thought was your thing,
Right.
right? One thing I don't like, and it's when people say, "Oh, you were born to do a certain thing," like,
Mhm.
"Oh, you was born to be an athlete." Like, no, your ability and skills supersede athletics.
Right.
And so, if you were never able to be an athlete, you could still use the God given talent that you have,
Right.
not just in this one space. You know, um, I was looking at a short clip where I think it was Tonight Show, maybe
Mhm.
the late night show or Tonight Show, something like that. And Steph Curry was on there, um, and the guy started talking about Philippians 4:13, why it's so important to Steph. And Steph was like, "Oh, this and that." He's saying, how this is my verse and things of that nature. And the guy said, "Well, do you think God chooses, teams or sides, or and Steph was like, I don't know if God covered the sports spread for the betting spread or not, And he said, well, one person came to me and said, man, you got to be you're God's favorite player, right? And
Mhm.
Steph said, well, I don't know about that, but if shooting a ball if I can use the platform of shooting a basketball to get you closer to God, then that's what I'm
Mhm.
gonna do.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So his whole thing was basketball is cool, but I'm way more than that.
Right.
And if I can use basketball to lead you in this direction, so I just use it to say that nowadays what we do is we help athletes see we develop athletes in a more holistic way now.
Right.
We develop them in a way that they see themselves beyond sport.
Right.
Like, do your best in the league, do your best in sport. The object of this thing is to get you to the league, yes.
Mhm.
But man, what about after the league? What about after college if you don't get drafted? What about you're in a particular sport? There is no
Mhm.
real professionalism for that later on.
Right.
Like, what do you do? Because some of these, there's thousands, there's hundreds of sports out there, man. There's hundreds of sports out there where you don't get a lot of sponsorship.
Right.
You know, I was in school with a guy. He was an endurance athlete. He rode bicycles. He was a bike athlete, and sometimes his winning purse would be the bike he rode.
Mhm.
And he lived in a van with him and his bike.
Right.
you know, and that's what he did. Like he didn't make a lot of money. It was just something he was passionate about and loved. And sometimes what he won was the bike he rode. The person that sponsored the bike for him,
Yeah.
that was his trophy for that was his pay.
Mhm.
You can keep this bike and ride in the next race. I mean,
Right.
it'd be $8,000, $10,000 bicycle,
Right.
but that was what he won for his purse.
Mhm.
So he had to become this well-rounded athlete, and it was difficult for him. I remember talking to him a few times in the program, and he
Mhm.
had a whole lot of challenges that he had to overcome, in training and everything, and how to be more holistic. There's a lot of folk out there who were great athletes, but they were not good people,
Right.
you know. So life is different now, man. Athletics is different, and for the better, I think. Athletics is different because now they're developing athletes. Not just now, performance is the top of the tier when it comes to professional athletes, right? You got to
Right.
perform. You're getting paid a lot of money. Got to
Right.
perform. You're on a big stage, and they want to perform. They want to perform, right?
Right. Right.
Um, and they've been working their whole life to do that, but they are more than the sport.
Right.
You know, they are a business. They are humans. They are still fathers. They are, you know, and a lot of times in certain sports, that overshadows the sport itself, overshadows everything else going on in their life because of the performance.
Right.
And so you have to develop them in a way that they realize they are more than just an athlete, you know,
Right.
and give them, give them other things in life to do because, like I said, like you mentioned, when we started out first talking about depression and stuff like that, well, some
Mhm.
athletes do deal with that, but there's not a lot of athletes that go through depression. Don't let the media or anybody take it like that. That's like
Right. Right.
as I talk to other people who are in this profession at a higher level,
Mhm.
they'll say, well, I spend 80% of my time with 20% of the people.
Mhm.
And what they mean is there's only 20% of athletes that actually need um these that are in these critical moments in
Right.
life
Right.
and need heavy psychological help. A lot of other athletes, they just need, how to learn how to focus. They just
Mhm.
need to learn how to, how to goal plan
Right.
and things of that nature, how to be more disciplined and stuff like that. So they're not in these in these areas of great, chronic need. They
Right.
have some
Right.
acute stuff that may happen, but for the most part, you know, um, it's not a majority of athletes that go through a lot of that. I mean, it's coming
Right.
out now that you have some well-known athletes that went through that kind of stuff, right?
Right. Right.
But and they're saying, well, sport did this for me, and so now the object is okay. Even after they leave sport, we still got to care about them, even when they're not able to perform for us anymore. Because that, on a professional level, that's what it is, bro. They're performing for us.
Right. Right.
They're bringing us entertainment, right? And so even after they get through performing for us, they still humans at the end of the day. And so they can't perform for us all the time. Can't
Yeah.
expect that from them all the time. And so we develop them in a way where they grow holistically. So when they leave sport, all the stuff they learn in sport, all
Mhm.
these great techniques we teach them, not just from working out, but these mental skills they get and these tools they have, they can actually take that and apply it to other areas of their life and just be just as successful outside of sport as they are in sport.
That's a great point because I think one thing that I heard, especially from following former fighters and a podcast that they do, is that one thing that you have to remember with any sport is that it's short term, but something that you get from it, like the physical activity, it's something you do need to carry on to be active because that helps your health. But then for most people, say if you finish sports about age 35 to 45, you still have another 30 to 40 years of life. And it's like, if you didn't plan for that, then all of a sudden you feel that lost and that anxiousness that comes about. And it's all because you're not giving yourself a chance, a plan. You're not writing something down to say, hey, here's what I would like to do. Here's where I would like to go. And even being able to hope for things and dream and kind of be like, okay, I can do this is kind of reminding yourself like who you are, where you are, and kind of instead of dwelling on like, oh, I was this person, I was that. It's like, yeah, you're that. And now you're more like you're today years old. You don't just have to live on the old glory days. You can create a better life going forward because it's like you're still in it. And it's not just like, oh, that was the old version of you was the best version of you. It's like, no, more times than not, the older you get, you have an opportunity to refine yourself so long as you're not dealing with brain trauma and different things like that. But even so, with like a lot of the technologies and different things that are being developed, it's like everyone's working away at their in their corner of life trying to like bring us together as people to be um living more productive lives or more fruitful lives to where it's like okay you don't have to continue struggling with alzheimer's or cancers or things like that where it's like there are treatments and there's things that when you kind of put the pieces back together it's not like you say it's not as bad as it's reported. So like there's some truth to it, but it's not a everybody's just struggling. Like just going out and exercising this week or reminding myself like, oh yeah, when the muscles ache a little bit, it's like I do like that feeling. Sometimes I might not like it or look forward to it, but when I can get myself into the habit of going for a walk or doing this the simple small things, it's like, oh yeah, that that's really not my problem. I don't need to be worried about this thing if I'm taking care of what I need to be taking care of.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know, the whole thing about being holistic, you know, one of the one I should say one of the whole things about being making people holistic is that no matter what profession you find yourself in, if you're a high performer, like
Mhm,
if you know, executive coach, if you guys who do executive coaching, all this kind of stuff, right?
mhm.
All these are high performers,
Yeah,
you know, and we use this the same, to be honest, the same techniques are used across the board that they
right.
use in sports psych, they use it for executive coaching, they'll use it for athletes, they'll use it for executive coaching, they'll use it for the military,
Mhm,
right? And so, you know, because I come from a military family, I know firsthand what it's like for guys to come out the military, and because they were in such a high performing, you know, environment,
mhm.
you know, a tense environment. So they always had to train. They always had to. But now that it's over, you know, where do they? What do they do? How do they live?
Right.
You know, how do I? You know, my days normally planned out for me. Now I gotta plan my own days. Now I gotta, you know, do all this stuff that was always done for me. So they really got to dig into a bag, you
Mhm.
know, because it was always planned out for them. They got to dig into a bag now, and they've gotten the skills. They've gotten the skills in the military. The military gives you those skills.
Right.
You just like sport gives athletes the skills.
Mhm.
You just got to be able to translate that over to something else.
Right, right.
And so we have to remind them when you work with, and that's the beautiful thing about sports psych is that, you know, people in that field, they can help remind those individuals, hey, you have the skills to do whatever you want to do, and remind them while they're learning it, this is not the only place you're going to use this at.
Mhm.
Like, this is not the only place you're going to be using what we give you. You're going to be using this elsewhere. You're going to be using it in everyday life. Matter of fact, when you're not on the field, I need you to think about the field, because your actions off the field is going to affect your performance on the field.
Mhm.
You know, how is this decision going to aid me when it's time for or is this going to hinder me from playing? Is this going to, because a lot of people make bad decisions because they get emotional. And so just like we teach them how to can control their emotions on the field or in play, we tell them, hey, you need to control your emotions at the club.
Mhm.
Sometimes you don't need to go to you don't need to go hang out. Sometimes you just need to stay in the crib. Sometimes you
Right.
need to, you know what I mean? You know, your
Sometimes you
only
need a
your
different
only
group of
opponent
friends.
your only opponent, you know, especially when you get to professional levels,
Yeah.
your only opponent ain't the person on the field again that you faced against. It's actually some of the fans or some of the
Mhm.
girls or some of the guys you meet off the field.
Mhm.
They're not really on your team,
Right.
right? So you need to help them. We have to remind them the same good decisions you make, the same way you see the court, the same way you have this broad vision of the court when you're playing, or the field when you're playing, or you can forecast, because great, you know, try and forecast a move, forecast what somebody's going to do. You need to be able to do that with the people you meet on the outside as well. Listen
Mhm.
to what they're saying, watch what they're doing, you know,
Right.
because all these things affect you in play, you
Mhm.
know. um I have a good friend um who who his brother was, man, he was a great basketball player. Still is a good basketball player too.
Yeah.
But he was going D1, bro. He was going to be that dude. And he went to a party. I mean, he had all the natural talent. He had the height, the
Mhm.
hand size, he had the knowledge, all this stuff, bro. He went to a party, bro, and somebody slipped him a Mickey.
Ooh.
Yeah, he ain't been the same since. Brain been jacked up since, bro.
Mhm.
And I'm talking about years ago this happened.
Yeah.
You're 20, probably 20, 30 years ago this happened. And he still ain't the same person that he was. And it messed his whole career up. He couldn't focus properly. He couldn't think properly. He could play ball, but man, outside of playing, because he, you know, so used to doing it.
Mhm.
Outside of that, his thoughts was cloudy. Making
Mhm.
the right decisions all the time. It was cloudy, bro. And so you couldn't leave him out there like that. So he had to stay where he was.
Right.
And he was still a good basketball player. I played some games with him. He was still a good basketball player. But outside of that, you know, because of that drug, man, and it was nothing he did. He was hanging out.
Yeah.
So I just sit through something, you know. So you have to make these. We teach them have to. We share with them. Yeah, you have to make these great decisions because you got to look at it. Some of these guys are still young men. They're
Right.
just getting out of college. You know what I mean? Some of them, they what, 21, 22, 23 years old,
Yeah.
fresh out of college, but they still young men. They still young people, young women, they still young.
Mhm.
And they are in these high performing environments,
Yeah.
surrounded by a whole lot of money and a whole lot of people that want to use them and keep them and do all kind of, and some people, good people that want to help them out as well.
Yeah.
But you got to teach them how to tell the difference between the two.
Yeah.
That's part of making them holistic. That's part of giving them skills to look at. That's part of showing them, okay, or relating to them. Because again, I tell you, sport gives them that ability to do so. Like all those
Mhm.
great techniques you learn in playing sport, how to read the floor, how to predict, how to do all that kind of stuff based on somebody's body movement, based on what the lineup is. Oh, they're gonna do a run play. Oh no, they're gonna finna pass the ball. Oh, they finna right.
Right.
Based on all those things, you make those decisions. So you need to take that same information
Mhm.
and use that in your regular everyday life,
Mhm.
and you have to remind them. The thing is that I think one of the biggest keys is reminding them that they have the skill. Like we've given them to you. You just need to transfer it over. Then showing them or giving them techniques on how they can transfer that over to other areas of their life
Right.
because the military gives it to you. The military. I used to tell these people. I used to say this thing, man. When I had I was doing a bunch of recording from my
Mhm.
truck. I would tell people, if you have don't knock a 9 to 5. If
Mhm.
you have a job, right? I don't care if it's McDonald's. I don't care where you work at, right?
Yeah.
The people that you are working for are showing you or giving you some techniques to use for
Mhm.
start your own business.
Right.
They're showing you how to run their business. You could be the dude on the fry, right? On the fryer, just making fries.
Yeah.
There is a technique and a reason why the fryer goes in there for a certain amount of time. It comes out of a timer. Take it out, you let it drain for a little bit, you flip it, you put sprinkle the stuff on it, you mix it up a little bit, and you put in the thing, and you let it go.
Right.
You say, oh, that's just no. There's because they are teaching you a sequence of orders. They're teaching you a process. They're teaching you just gotta be able to take that and translate that somewhere else. It
Right.
may not be the fryer, but everything can't stay in the water too long. It can't stay in the fryer too long. That means whatever you're working on, you can't be cooking it too long. You got to get it out. You got to get out and serve it,
Right.
right? So the same. We just got to be able to take the principles from what we see in everyday life, in everyday activities. Take those same principles and be able to apply them elsewhere. And a lot of that is, a lot of things that I like to do is to show them, no, I'm working with you, but you actually already have the skills. You
Right.
just need to learn how to transfer them. You just need to learn how to enhance them.
Mhm.
But you have the tools you need. And if you don't have the tools you need, then we will definitely help you get the tools you need
Mhm.
so that you can use them without us.
That's a
Like you
great
can
point.
use them when you leave this area and go somewhere else. Because sport is short lived. And
Yeah.
you actually get it from Pop Warner, but nobody's talking to these kids at Pop Warner like
Mhm.
that. Not in the, I know
Right.
there's
Right.
some kid dudes in the neighborhood that's great coaches for Pop Warner, Little League football, and they're telling these kids that it's becoming more and more out now. And on the high school, the elementary school level, middle school level, high school level, but they don't have the funding to bring in somebody like me to deal with the
Mhm.
kids. Whereas in collegiates, right, in college, well, all D1 schools have to set aside funding for mental health for all athletes across the board. Every D1 school, that's a NCAA law
Right.
where every D1 school, and it was done in 2020, I believe,
Oh,
every
well.
D1 school has to set aside funding for mental health. And a
Mhm.
part of what I do, a mental skills coach, is mental health.
Right.
So we work with the sports psychologist and the sports psychiatrist. We work with the some teams have social workers,
Mhm.
but they are different kind of. They're not the regular social worker like you see at the DSS. They're a different
Mhm.
kind of social worker. But some teams hire social workers to come in because they can do they maybe they clinical social workers.
Mhm.
So they have, I think that's what Royce, I think Royce may be clinical
Yeah.
in his aspect. And so they are able to hold, counseling sessions. They taught how to do counseling and stuff like that. So it's a little different than a regular social worker.
Mhm.
But we work with them. We because we have athletes we deal with. We work with athletes just on mental focus or on habit stacking or on goal setting, and then we recognize something in this athlete that, oh, you may need we may need to refer this person over here because they got a deeper issue,
Mhm.
right? And so we work with all those individuals, but we all work together. And so
Right.
because D1, the NCAA passed that law for the D1 schools, then it made room for us to get in, to come in and be able to help out with athletes on that level. But there's a lot of schools and a lot of athletes who still don't have access to that,
Gotcha.
you know. So it's up to the coach now
Mhm.
and his other coaches. They're phenomenal coaches. It's a phenomenal job to have, but it's up to the coaches now
Mhm.
to instill in those athletes, hey, what I'm teaching you, you're gonna use it more than just in this sport.
Right. Right.
Like they have the obligation as a coach. Coaches have the obligation, I believe, to
Mhm.
tell the athletes that they have the privilege of working with,
Mhm.
that they are going to show them how to use it in play and out of play, meaning in the sport and in regular
Mhm.
life.
Right.
I think that's something that the coaches have an obligation to do, not just
Right.
coach these kids for the sport, but show them because they're giving them the skills. Literally, sport literally is designed to give you the skills to manage your thoughts, manage your emotions while performing at a high level.
Right.
you know. And so life, sometimes you have to perform in life outside of sport at high levels. Like when your life depends on it, when you're making decisions that is going to affect, how your family is going to live, or you're making decisions that are at your regular 9 to 5, you
Mhm.
know, people say may not think that's high performance, but man, when your job is on the line, that's high performance. Your mind goes wherever it goes. Your emotions go wherever they go, and you need to know how to maintain and manage that.
Right. And even going back to the fast food example, like
So, you
serving
know,
food to people, it goes a long way because if you mess up someone's food, you could get somebody sick. So that goes a long way as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think see for me, man, the sports psych is just about being a better human because I think life is high performing anyway. I don't think one aspect is more. I think there's critical eyes on you. It's just way more intense. It's way. I will say that it is way more intense. Well, I don't know if anybody's ever been on the field or in play, and the
Mhm.
lights and the energy, and you're on TV. People are rooting for you. It's a different. You can feel that energy,
Yeah.
right? That's different, right? But it's no different for the individual person who can hear his wife and kids' voice in his head when he got to perform at work and make sure he keep his job.
Mhm.
When he carry that weight of the family on their shoulders, no different from a single mom when she got kids and she still got to work, she still got to go to school, and she got to get all that weight and feel on her shoulders. So it's no different. It's no different than a child who has to go to school and he has to perform well to get good grades, right? Or even athletics or whatever. And
Right.
and, and then socially, have social interactions and things of that nature.
Mhm.
For that individual, is high performance.
Gotcha.
And they need to have the skills as well to be able to manage those moments,
Mhm.
and they need to be reminded that they have some of the skills already.
Right.
Some of the same issues they go like athletes go through, self-efficacy, self-talk, those things. So a lot of these things, these kids, you don't realize a lot of these things these athletes got when
Mhm.
they got in the sport, when their parents was raising them for that. You're great. You're a
Mhm.
beast. You were, always pointing to them and telling them you're the greatest. You're the
Right.
beast. You're this. You're that. You're this. You know what I'm saying? Always giving them that mantra and telling them, no, you're gonna be doing this. No, you don't have to. A lot of kids, some kids don't have that,
Right.
and their parents can't give them that because their parents didn't have that.
Mhm.
You know, And so they find this, oh, you got kids who in the foster system. You got kids who are homeless on the street. And all these kids, they still need these same skills that they're not getting them. They don't realize they have them and they're
Right.
not getting them either. You
Mm.
know, when I did prison ministry, right, through the
Mhm.
church, I would use the same techniques I use with athletes with those cats. Because half them cats in there that I talked to, half the guys in there had at one time point in their life played sport.
Mm.
So I could go in there and talk to them using sport psych techniques
Mhm.
and help show them that when they get out or when they inside, how to maintain or how to manage these intense moments, these high performance moments.
Right.
You know, so a lot of people have those skills. You just got to remind them that they have them. The ones that don't have them, we can easily give them. But again, back to what I said about acquiring knowledge and not using it, I
Mhm.
got to remind myself to use the very thing I know how to teach.
Right.
Like I got to use it for myself too. I just can't teach it and then don't use it because I can. There's plenty of people that can teach
Right.
it, but then you got to be able to use what you teach as well.
That's very true.
So when I teach, yeah, yeah, and I got to pass it on to my kids because my wife and my kids in the professional realm, you see the tell the tape. You know, it's my
Mhm.
wife and my kids that really know. Me and my wife had a discussion just last night yesterday, on some stuff that, she was pointing out that I had to remind myself of like, okay, hold on, don't get offended by it.
Mhm.
Um, take this information, like, you take it, regardless of who's saying it to you. They typical information or their analysis of what you're doing and don't take it personal and move
Right.
forward. Like, it's good information. Okay, cool. Are they right? Okay, cool. Uh, how do I need to apply it? Do I need to change it or are they wrong? Like I have to I do all of that, even constantly with my wife, you know, because she's speaking on her own place of what her expectations. It's a lot of stuff, but it's all this stuff is really just really related to itself. And
Right.
there's no um box that we should be putting life in
Right.
or scenarios in life. That's just over here. No, that stuff is going to spill over everywhere else. But so the same techniques I use in one aspect of life, I should be able to use another aspect of life if it's a good technique.
Right. I agree with you. What's um what's one thing you would like to give people as a takeaway as they listen to this conversation?
Look into yourself, right? When you do, say, I often do a SWOT analysis on myself, right?
Mhm.
And I'm due for one now. Look into yourself and your strengths and your weaknesses, and be extremely honest with yourself, right? Look at your strengths, look at your weaknesses. Don't don't look at don't overemphasize your strengths. Don't don't undervalue them. The same with don't overlook your weaknesses and don't undervalue the ones you have.
Mhm.
Look at every opportunity that may be around, and then when it comes to your threats, really try and look at not just outside threats, but
Mhm.
look at internal threats as well.
Mhm.
Like dig deeper into yourself and figure out how you are a threat to your own success.
Mhm. I like that. Think I might do a SWOT analysis on myself.
Yeah,
And
I'm due for one. I
yeah.
promise you, I'm due for one. After that conversation I had yesterday, I'm due for a SWOT analysis. I'm due for one. So yeah, my wife, yeah, we had a conversation. So it wasn't heated, but it was to the point. So
Yeah.
I got to go back and do a SWOT analysis on myself and be honest with myself on some stuff. So yeah, because other people see it, man. Other people
Yeah.
see things about us, and some people don't. Maybe they're not seeing what they're seeing, or maybe they are. But we have to be able to take the criticism or the analysis right? Because she wasn't trying to criticize; she was just making an analysis,
Mm,
and you know, take that information and use it to the best of our ability. Look at
right.
us and figure out if it's true or not. Were they really saying what they were saying was true? You
Mm,
know, again, but don't underplay your strengths. Don't overplay your strengths. Don't underplay your weaknesses. Don't overplay your weaknesses. Right?
right.
Don't brush over them, and don't put more weight on them than they deserve.
Mm,
Right? Because so we can look at the weaknesses and get ourselves down.
right. Right.
Look at the opportunities around. And I say apply that same principle to every part of the SWOT analysis.
Mm,
Right? Don't put more weight on it than it deserves, and don't take more weight off of it than it deserves. Like
mm,
really look at it and say, okay, and that's going to it requires us to have a better relationship with ourselves.
mm,
That means the conversations we have with ourselves. That means the way we feel about ourselves, the words we tell ourselves when nobody else is around, the voices we hear that talk to us, right? And
right.
so really analyzing that and see how often am I putting myself down or picking myself up, or am I brushing over some stuff that I need to really hone in on, to make myself feel better, things of that nature. So I would say just yeah, take a deeper look into yourself, and especially on the threats part, see how you can be a threat to your own success.
Gotcha.
And that may not be something that's negative, maybe something that's positive.
Mm,
Like with me, the over consumption of information without a goal and using it is a threat for me.
mm.
So
Would you put a time limit on it to say, "Hey, spend this much time on it," or don't overdo it to where you then cause yourself more problems as you're
yeah,
overanalyzing?
yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, that's a great point. I would definitely set some time aside for it though. I would set some free time aside for it. It may not and the thing is it may not get done in one session,
Mm,
you know. Um, because my family was so used to doing before they left off. My family was so used to me leading that SWOT analysis.
mm,
I would take everybody's, I would have them write down. First of all, I had them write down
mhm,
stuff in their own SWOT analysis, and then bring it to the table. And
mm,
then we look at it as a family. Was able to work through it like that, so it didn't take a long time. It had them, So it may not get accomplished in one day. So definitely choose. Okay, I'm gonna take 30 minutes out and look at my strengths.
right,
Maybe the time limit should be on each one of them. However you need to design it,
right,
however
right.
you need to do it, so that it doesn't become overtaxing for you, is what you need to do.
Gotcha.
Everybody's situation is not the same. Everybody doesn't have the same amount of time, and
Right.
so I would definitely say, hey, spend the time that's necessary, but not too much time.
And you
And that's going to change from people. How I have to work with the individual to see
right,
exactly what their time frame was to help them work out how I think they should, what a strategy would be work for them. Not what I
gotcha.
think, but what a strategy would work for them to help them to walk through a SWOT analysis.
And you found it did you
And you
find
may
it
not get
helpful?
everything in.
But
Huh? Say that again. I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say, did you find it helpful doing it with the family to where are they able to also point out your strengths and weaknesses, or, like, how does that work? Or do you just kinda
Yeah,
co-sign
yeah.
on what it is they wrote for themselves?
No, I don't. No, both, both.
Hmm,
So we do a SWOT analysis as individuals, right?
right.
But then we do a SWOT analysis as a family as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they have their own individual SWOT analysis that they have to look at. Then come to
Right,
the
right.
table and say, okay, now what do you see as a family is a threat? What is that as a family is a strength that we all do well, that we all have the opportunity? What's a weakness for our family? Is it
Mm,
communication with one another?
mm,
Is it that as individuals? So for example, if there's a weakness in communication, then why is that a weakness in communication? Well, we all got our own phone, we all on devices.
mhm,
So now that's something that affects the whole family. Well, I may be on my device on YouTube University.
mhm,
But if it's taken away from time with the family and communicating with my wife, then it becomes a problem,
mhm,
right? So that's a whole separate SWOT analysis. You know what I'm saying, that I'm doing with my family now. and it shows them, okay, it's a family weakness, even though it's tied to that may be tied to an individual strength.
Mm. Wow.
So now my accumulation of information is harming my communication. My accumulation of information is harming my communication with my family because I'm always doing it.
Right. Right.
So I'm not taking away time. So there was a time when we ate dinner at the table when everybody's at home. There's
Mm.
no phones allowed at the table, no devices at the table.
Right.
And that was a struggle to work through because um, my kids would eat quick and
Yeah.
be like, "Can I go now?" And so they missed the whole point of no phones at the table. So that it would be just this quiet meal
Yeah.
and nobody's still communicating.
Mm.
So we took the devices away from each other, or we all get devices. So I have to remind my wife. My wife has to remind, hey, no device. Oh yeah, my bad, my bad. We put that down. I'm looking at emails. Oh, it's, at the table. Like, no, ain't no device. Okay, look, I got my bad. Put them down, right?
Yeah.
And so we do that, but then we still don't talk.
Mm.
We still thinking about the stuff with other stuff we're doing. So then we have to work through that process as well. So now the SWOT analysis for the family becomes a branch to the individual SWOT analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. SWOT analysis for the individual becomes now a branch to the SWOT analysis for the family.
Mm.
So we did both. Now we haven't done that in a while again because all the kids, just one of the kids are at home now. So we
Gotcha.
kind of walk through him a little different. Our time spent with him is a little different.
Yeah.
Um, but the kids are out and they're doing their thing, and now they have to use the techniques and skills that they learned at home as in while they out there on their own.
Right.
Because my kids, they're one of them is I can't drive to her. I
Mm.
gotta catch a plane to get to her. Right. My other son, he's no less than 8 hours away.
Mm.
So it's just not like I can hop on a plane and be there in an hour, but then I got another hour drive. So
Right.
all this,
Right.
so it's not easy to reach out and get to them and have these conversations, right?
Right.
And they can't always call me,
Mm.
even though I'm accessible. They just don't have. It's not life is not set up where they can just pick up the phone at any time of the day and call.
Right.
We say that, but sometimes you're just not available. Period.
Right. That's true.
You know, right? Even our best trying to be available, sometimes we're not available. And
Mm.
so in those times, they got to make those decisions. And so the idea is to remind them that, hey, you have the. Like I tell them, whenever they come home, we're riding, we're doing stuff. Hey, Dad, should we go to? And hold on, no, you choose. Like something as simple as my daughter drive and said, which way you want me to go? Whichever way you want to go.
Mm.
Well, what's the best way to go? You figure that out.
Mm.
And so she got to the point where I would always tell her, look, if you make a wrong turn, you can always turn around.
Mm.
Right. And so then she had to remind me and my wife, we driving in the car and I missed a turn. And my wife was trying to say, hey, I missed a turn. And my daughter say, ho, you can always turn around.
Mm.
Because we'll start getting an anxious conversation because we missed a turn.
Right.
And she'll throw our technique back at us. Hey, guys, we can always turn around.
Mm.
You know, so that's just something as simple as that to know that, hey, if I make a wrong turn, if I make a bad decision,
Yeah.
I can always make another decision to make it right.
Right.
Right. There's always a counter course I can do. It may take longer, it may not be as efficient as I wanted it to be, but man, I can always make up. I can always do something else.
Right.
So those techniques, helping them, hey, just make a decision. Can't sit around here a long time. Just make a decision. Whatever way you decide to go, we
Mm.
go. And it may take us longer or it may be shorter. We may
Right.
run into traffic, we may not. But it's the
Right.
way you chose, and we got to ride it out now.
Yeah.
You know, and don't be afraid to make a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and because you have the skills to make the decision right, and all else fails, just know if you're making the right decision if you're making the best decision for the right reason, God gonna work it out.
I like that.
Yeah, I remind him of that all the time. Got to remind myself of that too.
Mm.
Yeah.
How can people get in touch with you with what you're doing, whether it be with sports psychology, with Mayhem? with Guli products, different things like that?
So my IG is Gooley underscore wear. GOOLI underscore WEAR. Mayhem for you.org is our program where we do kids, take the kids overseas to experience living abroad. We go right now. We're in Spain, um, doing stuff in Spain, but we're definitely looking at to branch out more. But right now we're doing stuff in Spain. So that is mayhem.org. Um, Email will be the same, Eddie.Butler at mayhem, the letter four, I mean number four, the letter U.org. That would be
Mhm.
the email. Eddie.Butler at Wear for products like t-shirts. I have an amazing luxury cream
Mhm.
um,
I need to
that is
order
I
some
think
more.
is essential for the body, your skin. The biggest organ in your body is skin, so take care of that first defense. Um, all natural, I would say all natural too. So
Yeah, yeah.
if you get some in your mouth, it ain't gonna kill you. You put it on your face, you get some in your mouth, it won't kill you.
Yeah,
So, so doing that as well, that's two ways you can get in contact with me. Gooly underscore wear on Instagram and mayhem for you.org. We also have a mayhem Instagram. So we can go and see pictures and things of that nature if you need to DM through that way, DM that way as well.
awesome. And I'd like to get you out with the first question I asked you. Are you still who you said you were?
Yes, I'm still a man. I'm still a father. I'm still a leader, and I'm still a student.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, EL.
Hey, thank you, Ashley, for having the platform.
Yes, sir.